Welcome to another amazing conversation. I'm joined today by Chantel Ochoa, our wonderful moon rising mystic today, as we talk about balancing the 10 primary areas of life. And so if you're just now jumping on with us, you'll know that we host the Soul Rising Shamanic Reiki course, this 4-month online shamanic Reiki program. And as we step into orientation week for those students, we're going to be mirroring our podcast topics with what they are learning about right now. And so, right now in class, they are learning how to balance these areas of life. And it got us thinking that as we step into whether it's the new season that we're entering into, or maybe it's a new chapter in our life, I tend to find that as Earth transitions through the seasons, we tend to have those big transitions in our own lives. For me, that's getting married in November, but I know a lot of people who are moving, transitioning to new jobs, etc. And so, as we step into this place, this is a really beautiful opportunity to start understanding how our internal energy is mirrored in our external reality. And that's really what we kind of want to talk about today is when we're looking at these 10 primary areas of life, which we'll go over in a minute. When we look at these areas of our life that can sometimes feel chaotic or stressed or tense or stretched too thin, how is that mirroring our internal energy or our perspective about those areas of life? And so before we even dive in today, it's probably helpful for us to get those 10 areas. And Chantal, I might need your help here because there is 10 of them. So
Okay.
we've got spirituality,
Mhm,
career,
mhm.
finances, sexuality, partnership, friends and family, home environment, spirituality, personal development.
Spirituality was twice, so let's
Oh,
do health and wellness
health
for
and
sure.
wellness.
Uh-huh.
And there's one more.
Um, Family. Partnership?
Nope, I got partnership.
Okay. Um, I
This
don't
is
have
where we
them
need a
all.
list.
Yeah.
This is
But
where we need a list.
I think overall we can start where we are because I know you're going to pull up the chart. So why don't we start with finances? Because I think finances is one that's a big one on a lot of people's minds right now. And how to be balancing out finances. And I have come to find in my life that works really, really well for me is I have a calendar book. And so what I do is I go every month and I put down the dates that each bill is due and then when payday is. And so for me, I balance out my entire month based off of those two things. And so when it's time, like payday comes, those bills come out. Whatever is left over, then I personally divide and put half of that into savings. And so that's how I kind of bring in my balance. And then I know I could have this nest egg over here, whether, it's $20 sometimes in life or it's 500, it's just the balance of where you are, but knowing that you're putting a little bit aside for your own sense of security, for your own mind to just relax and say, hey, there's a little bit over there to, so you just feel secure, right? Creating that root foundation of security and finances and abundance and knowing that money is energy. So it's really the way we feel about money and how we feel worthy to receive money that brings in more abundance and more opportunity for it. It's when we have, I'm not worthy, I'm supposed to live poor, or I'm supposed to live a certain way, I've been taught a certain way, or I'm stuck at this job, at this pay scale. And really, we have the ability to make all the choices in the world to go change, to up level our career, to up level our trainings, to do different things in our life, to experience more. And that brings in more finances and abundance and security. And then that bleeds off, that energetically moves out and shifts into other areas of our life.
And I think finances is such a beautiful place to start this conversation because it's something that, we all have. And it's not something that, everybody has their different priorities in life, right? Some people value family over spirituality. Some people are the other way around. Some people are more about that health and wellness. Like we all have different priorities in life, but finances is something that every single person has to have an understanding of and has an energetic connection to in their life. And what I love about starting here is it's a really beautiful place to kind of explain where we want to take today's conversation. Because I think when we think about our bank accounts, when we think about our jobs, when we think about our income, We can all remember times where money was really flowing and it wasn't tight and we felt really abundant. And I would love to just take a moment to reflect back on whatever abundance felt like to you, right? We're not looking at a number here. We're looking at the time when you felt like money was available, that you felt secure, you had everything you needed, it wasn't stressful. And think about how you as a person felt at that time. Chances are you probably felt very much in alignment and very balanced and very open and very abundant. And, mass consciousness would say, well, you felt that way because your money was flowing. But when we're looking at this from kind of a backwards perspective, of that spiritual perspective, where we know that everything is energy, right? We wouldn't be here if we didn't know that everything is energy. And money is energy, right? Money is an energetic expression that is manifested in the physical world. And so when we're looking at this, we would say the money was flowing because you were aligned and balanced and open. And I think this is a great place to take this conversation from because it gives us this solid foundation of understanding this basic principle of how our energy flows, of that internally, when we are in our beliefs, our thoughts, our energy, our mindset, etc., when we feel aligned and balanced and open, our external reality has no choice but to reflect that because this physical 3D reality is just a physical manifestation of that blueprint of energy that we have underneath everything. And that blueprint is determined by our energy, right? We're in a co creative relationship with the divine when it comes to this blueprint. And when our energy is working and we're feeling opened and aligned and grateful and abundant, the universe is saying, yes, okay, let's give you more of that because we live in a universe of yeses and we have free will. And so when we are feeling really aligned and abundant, we are making a choice for our energy to be open. And therefore, that blueprint is saying, well, life gets to be open and abundant and flowing right now. And so we can see that mirrored in our finances, right? We all know those times where we feel, I actually just had a time like this past month myself, where things feel a little tighter and you can almost feel it in your physical body. It's like you can feel that shell or that net or that something just kind of pulling yourself in. And so your energy gets contracted, your mindset starts to get contracted, you start to feel really small. And typically, your finances follow, and it feels tight, and it feels like there's not enough. But if you can switch your energy, if we can bring us ourselves back into balance, whether that's through, as we'll talk about, a physical act of doing something, maybe it's making a calendar book, maybe it's looking over your budget, maybe it's actually taking a moment to look at your bank account and decide how much money do I have, how much do I want to spend, or it's taking the more energetic tactic and thinking, why am I not aligned with money right now? What is that limiting belief at the core of this discomfort that's causing me to feel like I don't deserve money? I don't deserve wealth. I only deserve to make this much. And I think what's fascinating about this is that we all have these, right? We all have what there's a teacher whose name I'm forgetting right now, but he talks about our glass ceiling. And our glass ceiling is essentially this limit that we place on ourselves subconsciously of this is as much of blank as I am allowed to have, as I deserve to have. So this is as much money as I deserve to make. This is as happy as I'm allowed to be in my job. This is as much love as I feel like I'm worthy of receiving in a relationship. And we all have these glass ceilings. And when we hit those in finances, that's when we can tend to feel constricted and contracted. And I actually have a really poignant personal example of this, which is lovely for this conversation, where for the past month, I've been in that place of feeling really tight and constricted because, like I mentioned, I am getting married in November. And, weddings can be a lot of expense. We're keeping ours fairly small, but even so, it's a lot of output all at once. And not to mention if you're self-employed like I am, you have quarterly tax payments which happen mid-September. And so this is all kind of swirling in my head and you can feel it, right? I want everybody to kind of map their own experience as I'm sharing mine and think of a time where you felt this way, where suddenly you are so aware of all of the bills that you're paying and all of the money that's going out and exactly how much money's coming in and you're trying to hold on to it. And in the process of holding on to it, your brain is saying, the more responsible we are, the more aware we are, the more conscious we are of what's happening with our money, the better off we'll be, right? That's our mind storyline. I'm keeping you safe by trying to control. And we'll see that come up again and again across these areas of life. But we can all understand that with money, right? If I just budget a little bit more, if I just keep an eye on every single cent that goes in and out of my paycheck, or if I don't look at it at all, if I
Mm.
completely ignore it, if I find a way to feel like I'm in control, then everything will be okay. And you start to notice how your own energy, your physical energy, contracts. And I had this experience and I sat and I was like, okay, I can tell that my energy is contracted, which is just going to cause my finances to feel more contracted. So, what do you do in those situations? You go through and you look at where's the limiting belief? Where's the glass ceiling? Where is this limit that I have put in place for myself that's holding me in this situation? And for me, there was a lot of feelings of worthiness, of responsibility. I need to be responsible with my money. I'm spending too much money. I'm not saving enough money. I'm not blank enough. And so there we see that core belief, I'm not enough, come up to the forefront. And notice how our minds are so clever at how they hide those limiting beliefs, right? It tries to make you think, oh, well, it's just about money. It's not about you. But every belief that starts with I am, I'm not saving enough, I'm not making enough, I'm not whatever, it is an I am statement. I'm not enough. And so we can notice that and we can realize that. And I did some work on breathing through that and letting it go, which we'll talk about how to do that maybe here in a little bit. And then I said to myself, okay, in an ideal world, in a beautiful, wonderful, perfect world where everything happens the way that I want it to, what would this paycheck look like? What would be the amount of money that I would want to be able to come back into that state of feeling expansive and aligned? And the number that came to mind is one that is not my usual paycheck by any stretch of the imagination. But I was like, you know what? Okay, I am going to put my energy in a state where I feel grateful for the fact that I made that amount of money this month. Because I know that when my awareness and my energy is that open and that expanded to match this ideal reality, that the external reality will follow. That if I put myself in the energy of, I made this amount of money this month, and so I don't need to stress, my energy is going to expand, and therefore my bank account will expand. And I actually just did the math yesterday on what this paycheck was, and it was that number that I had put in my head. And I had no idea. There was nothing that I changed. There was nothing I didn't make myself make this higher number of income for this week's paycheck. It just happened because you put yourself in that energetic state of, I am so grateful that I received this, and I'm going to make choices from that place so that my energy can expand. And so, this is where we're going to kind of take this conversation from today is this basic understanding that our internal energy creates an impact in our external energy, but you can also influence your internal energy by having awareness of your external energy. And so I did bring up this chart. So we have our 10 areas of life that I think we're going to go through one at a time. And we can feel into, now that we've gotten an example in finances, we can feel into what are the ways that these other areas are imbalanced and how can we bring them back into balance. So our 10 primary areas of life are fun and play, environment, sexuality, finances, health and wellness, family and friendships, partnerships, business and career, personal growth, and spirituality. So I would love to bring this all the way back to the beginning. And Chantel, do you want to jump into fun and play? Because I think that's such a difficult area of life for so many people to wrap their heads around that this is a primary area. So maybe share a little bit about, why is this one of our primary and why is it so important?
Fun and play is extremely important because that is the balance of our work, like the work side of us, right? When we are just work, 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 and no fun and play, there is no balance because you're eliminating a huge factor of one, who you are, and a lot of experiences that we can have. I'm a firm believer that we aren't all here just to work. Like we need to bring in that balance of fun, even if it's quarterly, even if it's once a month or whatever it is, but you have a goal of something that it's, date night once a week, or you're just playing with your kids, being spontaneous, coming home and being like, hey, let's go run around in the front yard or whatever it is. But there's time to sit and connect with your inner child, allowing yourself to be free, allowing yourself to laugh, to have joy, to experience the higher vibrations of what our our energetic body can offer us, because our physical self is, we have to survive in this world, and that is to work and to bring in finances and do all of these things, clean our house and do our laundry and cook dinner, and it's all a lot of chores. Life is really just filled up with a list of chores when you break it all down. So the fun and play is really what brings in that balance. And it doesn't have to be something extravagant. It's not like you have to fly across the world to go recognize what fun and play is. It just means that every day you're taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes of your day to go and enjoy yourself, even whatever that is, however that looks for you, right? If that is having a cup of coffee in, your garden, or sitting outside, or if it's, like whatever, going and watching your kids play, or just sitting with music, I don't know, whatever it is, but it makes your heart happy. That's truly what brings in that vibration of fun and play, that allows the balance to come in, that relaxes your system, that let you know that life can be fun and it's safe and it's okay. But when we're just gotta go, it's all grind and chores, then it's kind of like we're missing the point of why we even incarnated here. It's like, why are we here and what are we here to experience? And so going out and seeing different things. Like sometimes I'll tell my husband, like, we live with mountains all around us, but sometimes I want to see different mountains. That doesn't mean that we need to go, but I want to get in the car and just take a ride and go have a different view for a minute. And that is enough to feed me for the next few weeks. It's not like I need it all the time, but when I feel that stir in me, yeah, it's time to go. Where he's more rooted, he can hang. He travels long, every day, so he can hang. But for me, I'm like, okay, we need to get out, and he's like, all right, let's go. And that is just enough sometimes to go sit on different grass, go walk in different streets, just get a different view, and recognize that that right there really helps us energetically lift, which is healing. That brings our healing in all kinds of different areas in our life. But fun and play is extremely, extremely important. And a lot of people, we miss it. We just keep on going in life.
And I love that perspective of fun and play being the balance because it's so true. And I think, a lot of us can relate to this idea as the difference between our mind and our soul, right? Our mind likes to think and have those structures and know exactly what we're doing and when we're going to do it and how we're going to do it. And it takes away that spontaneity or that freedom and that flow. And that's really where our intuition comes in, right? We all know those experiences where we feel in flow, we feel connected, we feel aligned. And so I think this is an opportunity to think about, does the term fun and play resonate for you? Or is there something else that you could put here? It could be a sense of adventure, it could be freedom, it could be expansion, it could be exploration, it could be whatever you want to call it here. But what we're really getting at when we're talking about fun and play is that sense of magic. That sense of life is more than what meets the eye. It's more than this, this laundry that I have to do, the dishwasher that I have to empty, the taxes that I'm going to pay, right? It's this feeling of what I like to call the rapture of being alive. That those moments where you're able to go, wow, look at those leaves and how beautiful they are. And wouldn't it be fun to go like crunch in them, Like how long has it been since, our childhoods when we would run out and play in the piles of leaves or do sidewalk chalk or finger paint or and so it's less about the actual physical output of the fun and play, but more about the energy of that flowing through your life. And what I love about fun and play is it can be this foundation that we can flow into every area of our life. And so this leads us kind of into home environment because we've been talking about doing chores and cleaning and all of these things. And I think a lot of times, especially, the more repetitive we do it, my fiance and I have a joke about, every day for the rest of our lives, we're going to have to decide what to eat. That's a lot of meals, like that
Yes.
thinking of like, what do I want from the grocery store this week? It can be draining because it's the same decision over and over and over again. And what I love about fun and play is that we can kind of spread it over. I give this analogy to our students all the time of when you go to a restaurant and you order pancakes, and roll with me here, it's connected. And they give you that like big pad of butter for one pancake and you're like, there's no way I can use all of this butter on a single pancake. I have to spread it over and give some to the next pancake. And I think about that with fun and play of it's like this giant butter pad of life that we can like spread out and we can take from one area to the next area to the next area. And so when it comes to your home environment, whether that's choosing what you're going to eat that week, whether that's looking at the laundry that you have to do, or the dusting, or the vacuuming, or just in general, the tidiness of your home environment, we have this opportunity to look at how can I bring that fun and play or that adventure or that magic or whatever word you're using for it into this so that instead of it feeling like a chore, it feels like a gift. It feels like I get to clean my house. I get to cultivate this beautiful physical space. I get to come into my home environment understanding that it is a direct extension of my own energy. And so when you look around your house, is it really cluttered? Do you have a leak in your house? Is your roof falling in? How long has it been since you vacuumed, etc.? And we can look at that and understand that that is a direct extension of our own internal energy. And so if your house is feeling chaotic and cluttered, how are you feeling? Are you feeling chaotic and cluttered? And knowing that in that, we can take steps, like we were saying earlier, to change our external reality to help our internal energy come back into alignment. And so if your house is feeling really cluttered and chaotic, I do this with my desk at the end of every week. By the end of the week, there's usually like 5 more notebooks on my desk than I need, and there's dust everywhere, and, the little pieces of sage have fallen off from where I'm saging before classes, and so at the end of every week, I take a moment to reset my desk and to dust it off, to wipe it off, to put everything back where it belongs, and there's this noticeable shift in energy because to me, this desk space where I spend 80% of my life is an extension of my physical energy. And so when we're looking at our home environments, thinking about how is it a reflection of your internal energy and what can you change to help it feel more aligned and more balanced and more expansive. And so that could be as simple as folding the clothes that have been sitting in the dryer for a week, or finally emptying the dishwasher and putting the dishes away, cleaning the sink instead of just rinsing it out. It could be something as simple as burning a candle, breaking up your daily routine in your house so that it feels new and exciting, opening up the windows to get the air flowing, but really understanding that of all of these areas of life, I think home environment is the one that gives us the most tangible example of our internal energy because it is this external reflection of it. And so we can look around and say, how is my home environment out of balance? And how can I work to bring that back into balance, knowing that in doing so, I'm bringing my own energy back into balance?
Absolutely. And the one with home is just having that sense of gratitude that we have a home, right? That we have this place, like you're saying, we have this place that we get to cultivate, we get to decorate, we get to make our own, because it is an extension of ourself and our energy. And so we get to take a house and create it into a home. And so a practice that we do here is we speak to our house. So when we leave, we give thanks to it. When we come home, we welcome it. It's goodbye and hello and all these things. But yesterday it was really interesting when we were leaving the campsite, when I stepped, because we did a lot like we do land work, right? Like we give to the earth, we connect with the earth, we speak with it. And I know this isn't in my home, but it's our home away from home. And as I was stepping down the trailer steps, there was a little feather like right there. And I was like, right on, giving thanks to the earth and everything and to myself. So as we're leaving and we're thanking the land for the time spent and everything, all of a sudden the wind picks up and all these leaves start raining on us as we're driving. And it was like a movie. And it was like, it took us a second to recognize. I'm like, you realize like it's literally like giving us thank you because we are an appreciation for the time spent here. And then even like wherever you go, you love being where you're at. And then you get home and you walk in the door and it's like, oh, I'm home. And that sense of gratitude and sense of appreciation and walking in your house and feeling your energy and the walls coming in and greeting you and everything that happens. And like you're saying, being thankful to be able to wash the dishes, to be able to be healthy enough to do those things, to be able to nurture yourself and nurture your home and to have the clothes and everything. And I think a lot of times we miss on that point. It just becomes the to-do list, but really when you're in it and you're meditating or you're just thinking, lost in your own thought, but with gratitude of it and giving thanks that I have the opportunity to do these things, I think that also brings us into what health and wellness of being healthy enough to do these things, to be able to be mindful of it, to have the physical ability to do it, to be able to sit with it and know, like, cognitively, okay, I got to do all this stuff, and there's times when we feel sick and we can't do anything, we're stuck in bed, and then days go because you got a cold or whatever it is, and you get up and you go, oh my gosh, my house. But then there's that gratitude that comes back in and you're thankful that, "Oh, I feel better, I'm healthy enough now to go do what I need to do, to take care of my kids, take care of my spouse, whatever it is." And in the end, it is that full reflection of how you feel inside is now you looking at it, and you can give, like, your desk. You look at it and it's a mess, but is it really? Or is that showing you your week's work? Like, you get to see how hard you worked, and now you get to reset it. And it's resetting the energy in our home all the time, whether that's smudging, cleaning, working with your plants, whatever it is, but we're resetting that energy every time we decide we're going to clean our home or whatever it is. And I think it's a really great cycle for us and thought process for us to get into.
And it's all about switching our mindsets and switching our
Hmm.
mentality around that. And so health and wellness is a fantastic example of this. Chantel and I recently did a podcast on stepping into your power to heal, claiming your power to heal, which if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend. I'll put the link down below at the end of this. But I think when we step into health and wellness, it's this space where we can often feel like it's a burden, right? If we're feeling sick, if we have a cold, if we have to have surgery, if we have a chronic illness, we can start to get in this flow of almost like a victimhood mindset of why me? This is a terrible time for this to happen. We couldn't have waited until Wednesday after this big project, right? Like we have all of these stories that we tell ourselves, and one of the things that I love about homeopathy, which is an alternative medicine that I'm studying, is they see acute illness. So things like a cold, getting the flu, these like short term illnesses that knock us out for a while, but then we get right back up. They see these as signposts for where our energy is weak, aka where our energy needs the most attention. And I think that when you really dive into energetic theory and understanding that, again, everything in this physical world is a reflection of our energy, we can actually come into a space of extreme gratitude for these small illnesses or those moments where, even if it's not a small illness, those moments where we have to be in bed or we're not feeling our best because it is our energy processing and moving out. So many people experience the Reiki flu after they get their attunement. And I think that's such a great example of how it's just our energy moving out. And, if we think about the earth and we think about how when energy moves across the earth, we get weather patterns, right? We get storms, we get hail, we get snow, we get hurricanes, we get all of these things as the earth moves its energy. And knowing that, like we were talking about at the beginning, we are of the earth, we are of nature, that our emotions, our illnesses, those are the ways that our energy processes. Just like the earth has rain and hail and snow, we have crying and sneezing and all of these things, but we also have illness. It's part of how our body processes out this energy that's ready to be released. And so when we step into a space where we're feeling ill or we're feeling not our best or our health and wellness goals aren't quite where we want them to be, we can step into the space of asking ourselves, what's the symbolism of this? If you're constantly getting strep throat, how's your throat chakra? If you always have digestive issues, how's your solar plexus? How are you doing with digesting life? How can we start to look at these health and wellness situations as metaphors for, again, our inner energy and noticing how those are actually just messages. They're just signposts. It's just our body telling us, hey, here's an area where you could support me better. Here's an area where we could step into more alignment. And so, if you're noticing that in the morning you get a headache after your morning coffee, maybe that's your body telling you it's time to switch to tea. If you're, again, like I said, constantly getting strep throat, maybe that's a sign of your body telling you it's time to speak up and speak your truth. And so, when we swap our perspective here in health and wellness from illness is something that happens to us, that our bodies are, fallible. They're always failing us. They're whatever that storyline is that we have in our heads, to our bodies are incredibly wise and are constantly sending us messages and wisdom of how we can support it better. How can we apply that and listen to those messages so that we can step into a more balanced place of health and wellness? And I think that, that carries over into so many other areas, but it especially, I think, carries over into sexuality, which is an area where I think a lot of people experience a lot of blockages or discomfort or tension or all of these things. And, it is such a taboo to talk about sexuality in our culture. And I think that's part of it, right? Because again, if we think about how even just our words are a way that energy flows through us. It's a way that energy circulates throughout the world is through the power of our words. And this is an area where our words have been stunted, not only in, a global scale, not only in these kinds of conversations, but in partnerships and in these intimate relationships. There's almost like we have a hand over our mouth when it comes to our sexuality, and thinking about how that is so symbolic of our energy being stuck and not flowing in that area. And how is that coming out in other areas of our life and in other ways in our sexual lives? And so, thinking about this as again, this opportunity to switch our mindset from one of life happening to us to life happening through us. And if something's not flowing, if something doesn't feel right, if something's not functioning the way it should, what's the message there? What's the metaphor? What is your body trying to tell you? And how can you then step into a place where you can take action from that understanding of knowing my body is telling me that this is imbalanced, that this area of my life needs support, that I need to expand in X, Y, and Z ways. How can I do that? What's one small action step that I can take, knowing that these areas of life, they don't require these huge changes, right? They don't require these huge life overhauls. It's just those little moment to moment tweaks that you make that really make all the difference in allowing that energy to start flowing again.
Yeah. Talking about like with sexuality and it being such a taboo conversation, I find though that it's an interesting conversation to have because people do get like, oh, what? Like it's a cringe topic. And it so isn't because it's that brings in some fun and play, right? That brings in a lot of our inner ambitions of letting us be seen, letting us actually feel on a physical level what sexuality is and having pleasure and being sensual and being intimate with our partner. And so I believe that bringing in more sexuality, being connected with that in a safe way where both partners feel like in this loving connection and stuff like that, it's really just allowing us to be true to who we are on the physical level as well as the spiritual level. Because when we can meet those needs of like our sexual primal needs, we are meeting it on both levels. And then energetically, we are tuning into each other. And that creates a deeper connection between you and your partner. Because a lot of times when it's not sex is just sex, now we are connecting heart to heart. We're connecting sacral to sacral. And so when we're able to do that, it's bringing in this whole entire balance of bringing two humans together to connect energetically in a way that you cannot do that. Like you can't go to work and energetically connect to people like that, right? You can't go to a part like it only happens in that experience and in that moment. But when you can allow the pleasure to come through and to be safe and to know you're okay. A lot of women feel like, oh, that my husband's not going to like me because I've gained weight or I've done this, and I understand that. But love goes so much deeper than the physical self, right? Like if he fell in love with you or you fell in love with him, search for that love because the love is what's going to continue to keep the love going and the sex and to be intimate and to be partners in bed. And what happens in the bedroom is between you and your partner, and you can go and have fun and be sexy and feel into your sexual vibes and the goddess within and all of that, so that when you come out and that pleasure has happened and you feel like because it gives a release of stress and all those things. I don't think this is a conversation we shouldn't be able to have. And I think there's a lot of people that are probably gonna be like, Yeah, we need to talk about this more. And I would love that. But it also brings into the connection with your partners. And that leads us into partnerships of how do we embrace having a partner, right? Because being married or being in a long-term relationship it's difficult at times. It's hard to pleasure like give everything of yourself to somebody else and trust that your needs are going to be met as well. And it's also to think that one person can meet all of your needs, right? That's where the balance of partnership comes in. Because if you talk about love language, if you know each other's love language, and you like, if I meet my husband's love language and he meets mine, we have met in the middle with that balance. And he's taking care of me and I'm taking care of him. And so I think with partnerships, it's really looking outside of yourself and caring about somebody else in a much deeper way than in a lot of ways of giving of your own true self, right? Is because sometimes it's just mirroring each other. And we just need to know that what I give to you, I am in turn giving back to myself and bringing in that love and balance and support and all the things and being there for each other, mirroring each other's needs. And yeah, I'm gonna let you go on that part.
No, no, that was beautiful because I think that and that's the thing with partnership is there's a reason that it's called partnership, right? It's meant to be this exchange of energy. It's this back and forth, knowing that that balance that we've been talking about from the start, it's going to look different for every person. And there is also a caveat that I want to put on this for both the partnership area of life and also the sexuality area of life of you do not have to be in a relationship to feel fulfilled in these two areas. Those two areas of life are something that are, while they can include another person, they're also incredibly personal. And so, if you are single and happily single, which I was for so many years, I felt great and balanced in my sexuality and in my partnership, even though I was single, because that was aligned for me at the time. And so, knowing that how these areas feel is incredibly personal. It doesn't have to be that if you don't have a partner, then partnership is imbalanced. It's how do you feel in this area of life? And that's something that is so important for partnership, especially when you do have a person with whom you have a relationship with, because it gives you this opportunity to understand that what that balance looks like is different for every couple. And so when we're talking about a partnership, it immediately gives this energy of knowing that that balance when there are two people comes from them both having a stake in the outcome, from both parties being invested and involved, knowing that the way that they're invested and involved isn't going to look the same for every couple. And so this isn't us coming on to say, well, this is how a relationship should look. This is saying, let's bring awareness to, does your partnership feel balanced? And I think this is where we can then start to look at the other areas of life and notice how they're blending together, right? So in finances, for example, if one of the people in a partnership brings in more income, how are we balancing that? How are we balancing that flow of energy? Of if the energy is flowing through one person in terms of finances, maybe it's flowing through the other in terms of they do more of the housework, or they cook dinner, or they have this other area of life where they're giving more of their energy to bring in that balance. And so knowing that it's not always going to look like a 50-50 split, but what's important is, are you engaging with your person in a way that facilitates open communication? Because again, our words are our energy stream. And when we are communicating, that energy between those two people is flowing. And so that's the first step is where's the communication? Is it happening? Is it not happening? How can we allow it to happen in more of a safe and sacred space? Knowing that creating that space does sometimes take time if it hasn't been there from the start, and then looking at and how is the energy flow overall? Do you feel balanced in the roles that you each have in that relationship? Do you feel balanced in the way that you are both giving and receiving and allowing yourself to be seen in that? So knowing that as we're talking about all this and we're talking about, those core limiting beliefs that come up, knowing that oftentimes your partnership is the place where you can go and have someone who can see you even with those limiting beliefs and even with those places where you're trying to grow and expand and even with those things that don't feel as polished and perfect, they can see you fully in that. And that ability to be witnessed is another really beautiful part of partnership. But again, it all comes back to, does the energy feel balanced, whatever that looks like for you? And that brings us into family and friendships as well. And there's a reason that these are separate, right? Because partnership is a very different energy than the relationship that you have with your family and your friends, but it has that same idea of needing to be like have that foundation of balance of does it feel like there is an equal portion of giving and receiving. And I think family relationships can be really interesting because so many people have really tense relationships with their family, and this is again where it goes to, for you, for your situation, not the ideal, right, but the reality of what is happening in front of you. What would it feel like to be balanced? How much communication do you want to have? How often do you want to see them? This is where having that personal development, which we'll talk about in a second, can be really key because it helps us to know when to set boundaries and when to have an open door. And I think, again, that balance comes into play when we're talking about family and friendships because it's an area where in partnership, you are, like Chantel said, giving yourself to the other person. There is this complete openness with a partner, whereas that often doesn't happen as fully in family relationships and friendships. And so there's more of a focus on boundaries and respecting your own autonomy while also respecting the autonomy of the family member or the friend that can come into play in this area of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with friends, we choose our friends, right? We don't choose our family. I mean, at least not here. But, we choose our friendships. And so they are an extension of who we are because there is a personality trait that links up that says, you know what, it's like you're out in a crowd and you pick someone out and go, you're my friend, I like you. I find friendships to be so funny because you literally just pick a person out of the crowd, like, hey, let's be friends. And so there's, I think, more boundaries setting with family because you grow up, you have this long history, and so, for whatever reason, there is boundaries that get set. And even with friendships that can happen. But I think when we can look at our friendships and our family and everything, and we can find that commonality between us, that really can bring in that heightened reality and that heightened sense of energy so that we can have healthy relationships with them, have open conversations, be able to engage with each other. But sometimes it just takes the one person to shift the entire energy of like a family, right? So if you're gathering together and you have all your extended families from cousins and grandparents and everything like that, and there's family discord that happens, sometimes it's just that one family member who can shift the entire thing by bringing in laughter or by, kind of reducing the stress that everyone can feel, or whatever it is, and we can like be the one that steps up to do that. Find it in yourself. Like if you're listening to this conversation, that means that you're at a level of energy and consciousness to say, you know what, I can be that person. I can be the elephant in the room that says, hey, we need to like not be focusing on this or that, but pull out some games, pull out some fun, fun stories, shift the entire energy by getting people involved in the kitchen or going out and playing games, kicking the ball outside, whatever it is that your family enjoys doing. Literally just making a suggestion like that sometimes can shift the entire experience of coming together. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that's why families break up, because you come together and it's like, I don't want to hang out with them. Everyone just sits around and complains and, or whatever it is, fights, argues and stuff. But be the one that can kind of shift that and within your own boundaries, within your own safe zone, but recognize it in yourself that maybe you're the one that's here to break like that generational trauma, to start bringing healing into your family unit, to show them that there's a different way of parenting, or there's a different way of being a sister or a brother or a daughter, whatever it is, you are being witnessed. We're all witnessing each other and we're all being witnessed. So if we can be the one that shows up on the lighter side that can really help others in their shadow, I think the families will come together a lot more, and there won't be this, I'm going to tiptoe around everybody, because, that's not fun either. No one needs to be walking around eggshells. And I think that's just noticing where people come from, and that's where the healing starts to happen. There's reasons why families act that way, and a lot of it is because there's been trauma and experiences in life. So if we can be a safe space for the family members to then recognize this is a safe space to be in, and we can have fun as a family, and we can let the past be the past, then we can really shift the consciousness of everyone around.
Yeah. And that's really where we can come to these last few areas of life, particularly personal growth and spirituality, which they are separate, right? Personal growth, we're thinking of things like our human selves. What goals do we have for our human selves? How are we developing as a human? How are we looking at ourselves in terms of success and fulfillment and our purpose and our passion and all of these things? Whereas spirituality is really that area of what's your connection to the divine? What's your connection to this higher space, this something bigger than yourself? How are you flowing with your soul's mission and your soul's purpose? How's your intuition, etc.? But when we really bring these two areas or kind of look at them at the same time, we come into this space where we start to look at how is, in essence, how's our introspection going? How is your ability to really look at yourself, to honor yourself, to reconcile all of these different parts of yourself and be comfortable in them? Because that ability to sit with yourself, to understand yourself, both from the spiritual context of who you are in the greater purpose and the greater meaning of things, but also in the human context of who are you? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What are your values? That ability to
Mhm.
know yourself is so important and powerful in all of these different areas of life because it gives you the motivation and the context with which to set boundaries, with which to choose your friends, with which to have that communication with your partner. If we don't have this foundation in knowing who we are, again, from that spiritual perspective and from that personal side, then everything that we do is going to feel disconnected or lost or ill at ease because it's not rooted in that foundation of our truth and our experience. And so, knowing that if that's you, if you're feeling that feeling of, all of these areas of life are great, right? And we kind of touched on business and career and finances earlier, but all of these areas of life are great. But no matter what I do, I feel disconnected. I feel lost. I feel like something's not quite right. Maybe it's time to look at, when was the last time that you asked yourself what you want, what your purpose is? When was the last time that you made a decision for yourself instead of for someone else? When was the last time that you sat down with a journal, or you meditated, or you went for a walk and just let your thoughts go? And coming back to what we were saying from the very beginning, when was the last time that you let yourself just exist and notice what comes up when you're not trying to control and hold on to everything? And so, as we're bringing this conversation to a close here, this is an opportunity and an invitation to think about all of these different areas of life. So, again, to recap, we have fun and play, home environment, sexuality, finances, business and career, health and wellness, family and friendships, partnerships, personal growth, and spirituality. And when we're looking at these areas of life, which one is calling to you the most? When you think about all of these areas, where does the energy feel the least fulfilled, the least flowing, the least aligned? And can you make that your focus? Because as you've seen throughout this conversation, every area of life feeds into the next and feeds into the next, which, if you've listened to our podcast, should sound familiar because of the chakras, right? It's this ability to feed our energy together so that all of these areas of life are balancing each other. And so, if one area of life is feeling particularly imbalanced, right? Whether it's the family relationships because you feel like you're not seen and you can't speak up and everything's tense and there's no balance there, or it's your personal development because you don't know who you are and you don't know what you value and you don't know what you want, or it's your home environment and those boxes from when you moved in a year ago still haven't been unpacked. And every time you come home, it makes you feel stressed. Whatever it is, even if it's finances, right? And finances are feeling really tight. This is your opportunity to look at these areas of life and say, this is the one that feels the most imbalanced. This is the one that's calling for my attention the most. And start by just picking 1 to 3 small actions that you can do to bring it back into alignment. And so, if it is that home environment, can you unpack a box every day? Can you clean your bathroom or wipe down the sink? Can you clean off your desk or dust that rug that hasn't been vacuumed in a while? If it's, your finances, can you look at your bank account in a loving way? Can you send it Reiki? Can you do your budget if you've been avoiding it? If it's personal development, can you sit down with a journal every morning? Can you bring in 5 minutes of meditation or awareness? Can you do one thing every day that's just for you? These little tiny actions that we can take that are going to open up that energy, and then having the awareness as you're doing them to notice the limiting beliefs as they come up, to notice those I am statements of, I don't deserve to have a clean house. I don't deserve to make this much money. I'm not worthy of having a partnership with open communication. I'm not safe if XYZ happens. Notice those stories as they come up, because the more you notice those and the more that awareness comes, the more you can start to work through those and pull those apart. And we have so many podcasts and resources on how to do that. But it is these little baby steps that when that one area that's really calling for your attention starts to get this energy flowing to it through your attention and through your intention, right? If you're setting that intention today of the area that I want to focus on is, and I'm going to do that by one action step, your intention is now flowing to that area. Your energy is now flowing to that area, which means that it's already bringing itself back into balance. It's already opening up, which is going to have that domino effect on all the other areas of your life. And so that is really our invitation to you from this podcast, is to think about all of these areas of life and pick one. Pick the one that during this conversation stood out to you the most, and then choose one small action step that you're going to do for the next week. Do it for a week, right? This is what we always tell our students, do it for a week. If it doesn't do anything, you can leave it behind, and that's okay. But give it a try for a week. Something that's going to bring energy into this area of life, and notice, just notice how it shifts and how it expands. And so maybe that's rating this area on a scale of 0 to 10. How fulfilled do you feel right now in this area of life? Do your action for a week and then rate it again at the end of the week. And we would love to hear over in the Moonrising Shamanic Mystics Facebook group, what area of life did you choose? What's your action step? Do you need some accountability or support to be able to continue doing that action step for the next week? Do you need someone to be able to sit and listen to your story and listen to why you chose that area? That's really what that group is for. And so before we wrap up this conversation, I'd love to see, Chantel, do you have anything to add to that?
I love doing the little steps because that's a journey in itself. And doing just the little things, suddenly they become big things, right? They grow and evolve into something bigger. And so if we can just have enough grace and time and space for ourselves to recognize what we need, coming back to like self-care, but what is it that I need now, and creating those little steps to really build and have transformation. That's what it is. So don't make it overwhelming. Don't stress yourself out over this. Just find the things, that the one area in your life that you feel is not in balance, and then create one step every day, just one step. And when you do that, you'll see huge growth in your life and transformation. And like Isabel was saying, if you don't feel in alignment with something that you chose to do, change it, shift it. It's okay. Give yourself permission to change it. Don't get stuck, and you're not married to it, right? So just allow yourself to keep moving forward, and then you'll start to see everything will shift in its own timing throughout your life, throughout all of these areas in your life. And so with that, it's just really taking the time for yourself, noticing how you're growing, noticing how you're showing up for yourself, and how your life will start to transform.
Beautiful. So feel free to take that invitation to choose this area of your life. Maybe go back and listen to this podcast and write down those 10 areas and find the one that's calling to you most. And then come share it over in our Moon Rising Shamanic Mystics Facebook group. Share what your area of life is and what your action step is. And we'll be there to kind of keep this energy flowing, to keep the energy of this conversation moving so that we're all supporting each other in this balancing this area of life and taking our action steps every day. So feel free to come join us over in the Moon Rising Shamanic Mystics Facebook group and keep this conversation going. And in the meantime, may you awaken to the whispers of wisdom rising from within.